Brian Schottenheimer had a strong first impression with the Dallas Cowboys. Let's break down his performance next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we're going to talk about all of the notes that we have gathered after watching the All-22 from the Week 1 game against the Philadelphia Eagles. But before we get into that, Landon, let's talk about Brian Schottenheimer, who coached his first game as the Dallas Cowboys head coach on Thursday night. We went back and watched his tape. What did you think?
Well, first of all, I mean, the standard is winning the game, obviously, because I feel like whenever you kind of try to talk positive about this team and in a losing effort, people inevitably show up, especially early in the regular season. It feels like people inevitably show up and want to be pedantic about it. But yeah, obviously winning is the goal here. They didn't win the game. So in that sense, it wasn't a fantastic debut. But in almost every other sense, like in the kind of follow through of the promises that he's been making throughout the season, and the kind of approach to the game, in the sense that for the first time, it feels like for the first time in a really long time, the Cowboys showed up early to a game on the road early in the season, and we're ready to go, and we're ready to perform. We're ready for the challenge early. I took it to the Eagles early, so. I think in those senses, in the sense that they looked like a more physical run team that had some success, even despite not maybe having a superstar running back. I think we saw something out of Williams that we were a little bit surprised to see. They had a high success rate, efficiency. They were aggressive throwing the football. I think in all of those things, and I think I like the way that Schottenheimer called the game and trusted the offense throughout the game, and they had a lot of early success. I think in that sense, the returns are very good. And if you're worried about the long-term outlook of Schottenheimer as the Dallas Cowboys coach, I think if you're just viewing it through that prism, you're feeling better about the situation. At least I am than I was before this game.
You're right. I mean, everything is judged based on wins and losses in the NFL, and he didn't win. But he had the much less talented team going into the game, and that's why over on FanDuel, the Cowboys were 8.5-point underdogs this weekend, the biggest underdogs of the weekend, and they went toe-to-toe with Philadelphia, and they lost the game not because they weren't coached well. It was, you had Miles Sanders who fumbled the ball. That could have easily led to a field goal, if not a touchdown. Yep. You had Jake Ferguson dropping a ball in the end zone. You had CeeDee Lamb, who had at least 3 drops, maybe 4, depending on what you count as drops. Like, he put them in a pretty good position. There weren't a bunch of penalties that, like, you just shake your head over. And again, this is a team that basically did nothing in the preseason. None of their starters really played, and they didn't look like this was week 1.
No. And they, like you said, they went toe to toe with the Super Bowl champs in their house. They didn't look like they were out of place. So again, I know it feels like we're lowering the bar a lot, but guys, like, we just traded away Micah Parsons a week ago. And so this thing's a little discombobulated. And honestly, we just had no idea what to expect from this team. There were so much new components to this and so much unknown. I feel like there was less known about this team going into week 1 than I feel like any time in the last maybe decade, probably.
One of the things I liked about, at least from the offensive side of things, is they were aggressive. Like, they came out throwing early. They were staying ahead of the chains, but they weren't running the ball. He didn't completely get away from running the ball. They did do a good job of staying on the ground. They were effective when they ran the ball. And we saw guys like Kevontae Turpin get involved. We saw a couple different running backs get involved. I think overall, my thoughts coming out of week 1 is Shotty was maybe better than I thought. But again, it's you've got to win these games, and it starts next week against the Giants. If they don't win that game, it really doesn't matter how good we think he is or how good he's looked. You got to win these games.
Yeah, it's nice to be good, but you know, unfortunately, you've been put into a tough position with this schedule that you've got. You've got to be better than just good. It's good that he was at that level, but we're going to need a little bit more from them. I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, but you know, as the game wore on, I think both teams kind of started to suffer a little bit more from what I'll call September football, and it just felt like things weren't quite as organized as I thought, and I think that was both sides of the ball. And that's why you saw after they came back from the Lightning break, I think. Did anybody score any points after the Lightning break? I don't know that any points were scored.
Right?
I think was the field goal before the Lightning break. I can't remember. But at this point,
yeah, it doesn't matter.
It all kind of blends in. But the point is that there wasn't a lot going on. You know, in the second half of that game, I felt like both of these teams were very well early scripted and organized, and then you started to see it kind of degrade a little bit as the game went on.
Now, what about Matt Eberflus? Because I had very mixed views on Eberflus coming out of the All-22, because it's like the first couple of drives, they were just marching the ball up and down the field. Nobody was beating their blocks. I thought they were better in the second half, but guys just started to play better. So we saw some more blitzing. What did you take away from Eberflus after watching the tape?
Well, I mean, I think you said it, and I think that to me that's like a pretty good showing by Eberflus. I think as a schematic, you know, developer, I think he had a good plan. I mean, obviously they held AJ Brown and Smith to like, I think was one combined catch in the first half. And I don't think Brown finally got his first catch until the game was basically over inside 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. So from that point of view, I think that he did a good job. I think for the most part, as a run defense, they did a good job. The problem seemed to be containing Jalen Hurts and covering the tight end, because that's simply how they move the ball down the field almost exclusively early in this game. And then as things kind of, you know, went on, they felt like they needed to press the issue a little bit in order to get Jalen Hurts off the spot. They blitzed a little bit more. They had some success. And then I think that they all ultimately, you know, got hit on some of those blitzes as well. So, which is the nature of blitzing, right? Yeah. So I think schematically, it made sense. Execution-wise, it wasn't always great early on. And when we saw, you know, a guy like Williams get drawn inside, seeing Hurts just kind of deciding to take it and run, you know? So I think that he had a good plan. I think, you know, the kind of early September football stuff we talked about really applied on the defensive side of the ball with discipline stuff, with missed tackles. I mean, I think Deron Bland missed 3 missed tackles by himself, which is not, you know, typically his thing. So, and then there's guys that, like, to me, probably shouldn't have been on the field as much, like Kenneth Murray and that sort of thing. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next segment, but I don't necessarily fault Eberflus for that aspect, though. I guess he has the choice to take him off the field or not. But I think schematic wise, his game plan was sound. They did a good job of taking away 9/10 of the offense. The problem was that last 10th really gashed them a lot in the first half. And by the time they kind of fixed the leaky hole, it was a little bit too late.
All right, let's talk about the Cowboys offensive line, because on initial viewing, we thought they played really well. But what about after watching the All-22? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. We absolutely love Prize Picks here on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. It's the daily fantasy app where making the right call actually pays off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's honestly my favorite way to follow along with football. I love checking the projections like every Sunday morning, getting ready for the games. So go and download the PrizePicks app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. This episode is brought to you by Upside. Hey, Locked On Cowboy fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use our limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN to get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. you can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already needed. I get it. I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes. And you can too. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or e-gift card for Amazon or other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now by using our limited time promo code Touchdown for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That is promo code Touchdown. Offer varies by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Landon, let's talk about the Cowboys offensive line, because for the most part, they held up in this game. They gave Dak Prescott time to throw the ball. It broke down a little bit in the second half, but I want to start with Tyler Booker, the Cowboys' first-round pick from Alabama. How did you think he performed in this one?
It was up and down. I mean, he certainly looked like he was adjusting to the NFL speed a little bit early on. He gave up a pressure on a kind of a twist situation where he got pulled outside and then didn't get back inside as the twister came back around inside. There was definitely multiple times when it felt like there was some coordination issues between him and BB. Like, there's a combo block, a duo block where he was trying to get secure the defender over to BB and then get to the second level. Probably could have given him a little bit more help kind of securing that. Again, it did feel like, and I don't know if this was always a case of Booker not being aware of what was going on to his left, or if this was a schematic thing that was chosen by the Cowboys. But there was just too many times when I felt like I saw Cooper Beebe blocking Jordan Davis one-on-one, which is just a terrible mismatch. I mean, he was just being out physical into the pocket, and there gave Beebe a couple of different snaps where he looked really bad, even though I feel like it was more an issue of either not getting the help that he was expecting to get or a schematic issue of some rate. So, then I think even Tyler Smith, I felt like didn't have one of his best games. There was definitely points where he was, dominating folks, but there were a couple other different times where there was one time where he basically had to tackle a guy because he got inside of him and he got a penalty called on him. So I think that the interior was good. I mean, obviously we won the line of scrimmage on a lot of these blocking situations early in the game. The gap scheme stuff looked really good. They were able to get around to down block and move bodies and that sort of thing. But it just felt like there were also times when it was Dak having to make everything happen, escaping the arm tackle in which he was basically all completely enveloped by the defensive tackle and then was able to pull himself out and make big plays. Dak was incredible in the pocket. So I think really what it is after a further review, as the referees would say, that we need to kind of shift some of that good feeling we had with the offensive line to maybe towards Dak's way, because he did such an excellent job of kind of escaping and buying time in the pocket to throw the ball.
I am very much team sacks or a quarterback stat. And I think this is a perfect example because there were some pressures in this game. I think Tyler Guyton gave up 5 pressures. And again, before I get into this too much, Tyler Guyton probably struggled the most as a pass blocker, but he missed almost all of the summer with a knee injury. He only had a couple practices in before he got to play in this game. We weren't even sure if he was going to be able to play. And they didn't really help him out as much as I thought they were going to. They kind of left him on an island. And yeah, he got beat. I think, again, 5 pressures according to Pro Football Focus. I don't care. The fact that he was out there, he was playing, and he was able to help as a run blocker makes me feel good. But the overall point is, when you have a quarterback like Dak, and there's other quarterbacks around the league that are like this, they can get you out of bad situations. We were watching Jared Goff on Sunday. Anytime he was pressured, he would panic. That wasn't the case for Dak on Thursday. I thought Dak did a good job of overcoming some of the weaknesses of the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a whole time for a whole segment on Dak, but this was one of Dak's best games, to be honest. Like he really did look masterful at times. And if 88 or 87 catches, 2 of their 5 drops that they had, we would be talking about Dak Prescott in a very different way this week.
And I'm just not worried about the offensive line so much because they did not play a single snap in the preseason together. They are the youngest offensive line in the league by a wide margin. You've got a first-year starter in Tyler Booker. You've got a second-year starter in Tyler Guyton, who just has not played a lot of football, coming off an injury. And then you've got, Cooper Beebe, a second-year player, et cetera. Like, they need some time to gel. And I think this was all calculated for the Cowboys. Like, they want this offensive line to be the strength of their team. But I think they will acknowledge it's going to take them more than one game to gel.
I think it's hard to say. It's hard for kind of casual observers to see this, but the difference between Tyler Guyton, where he was this year and where he was last year, is night and day. I understand that what Marcus said, 5 pressures, but again, this is against a very good Eagles pass rush. This is, again, coming off of an injury in which he barely made it back in time and then earned his way back into camp. If he had this same sort of thing happen last year during the season, he wouldn't have. He got pulled. Like, at certain different points, he was not the starter because they couldn't rely or trust on him that he would be able to play with that much missed time. That was not the case. They were chomping at the bit to get him back into this game, and I think that he didn't get them killed. Right, like, it was not a good game, but on the pass protection situation with Guyton. But I think with the positives that he added in the run game, and he didn't get them killed in pass protection, I think it was pretty impressive considering everything that he's gone through in the last month of the preseason.
We're gonna get to some more takes here in a little bit, but I want to start with the running game. How did you think this running game performed overall?
I think overall it looked pretty good. I mean, they were like, I really, obviously, where they were starting to see some of the successes, the gap stuff just looks incredibly different. It looks, much more coordinated. It looks like it's everyone's syncing up really well. Guys are winning their blocks, and guys like Guyton and Booker, I think you saw that's where they felt like they were more comfortable. Right? It still could be cleaner. Even on the touchdown run, it felt like Booker overran his target a little bit. But I think that I think that was a big contribution to why you saw a lot of the early game success, is because they were able to mix in efficient running, and a guy like Jamal Williams was able to kind of get in there and,
Javonte Williams.
Williams. Yeah. Sorry. I knew as soon as I said it wasn't right. He's able to get in there and create contact even after create yards, even after contact. So that kind of all synced up, and we just hadn't had an opportunity to see all of this kind of work in concert in real time. And again, we can't, I forgot to mention this earlier too, with the Schottenheimer stuff. We cannot discount the kind of small, incremental, but important changes they made in the offense with the inclusion of shifts, with the motion that they were doing. It was obviously an incredibly high rate, certainly in comparison to what they were doing last year. It just gave them better pictures and better options. It changed the counts for them. And it also just made for, in certain cases, a lot of last minute changes that the defensive lines were having to make, which often, kind of put them out of position, even just for a little bit. When you're looking for angles, when you're trying to just find a little foothold in the run game, all those little things add up. And it felt like that's what kind of worked. And you saw when Javonte Williams was running the ball, when they were giving it to Turpin, when they were doing the kind of reverse stuff, that was all hitting well. And even when Sanders was in there, like he missed a couple runs, but he obviously got the big 51-yarder as well. So I felt like the blocking was doing its job, right, especially with the offensive line and the tight ends as well, which I think was worth pointing out.
All right, let's talk about some more notes after watching the All 22. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It's incredibly frustrating, but that's why I use Game Time, that app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. I pulled up Game Time. In just a couple of taps, I saw some amazing deals for a couple of games that I want to attend over the next few weeks, and some of them for as low as $100. You absolutely cannot beat that. So download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. The NFL season is finally here, so for your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the Madman Rowland, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you to the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Landon, let's talk about some other things that we noticed in the game. And I want to start with Jaden Blue, who actually didn't play in this game. He was a healthy scratch. We should say healthy relative. He is dealing with some kind of ankle injury, but he was not on the injury report. I think that was a surprise to some people because the Cowboys obviously need his juice. They need his speed. When will we see him?
Yeah, I'm hoping sooner than later. I mean, honestly, after the Miles Sanders situation, it's like, what happened with Miles Sanders is, I think, what you worry about with Jaden Blue, right? And I think that they probably decided to go with Sanders because they probably wanted to give him more carries than they were kind of comfortable with giving Jaden Blue. And then on top of that, they needed the special teams guy, right? And neither one of Blue or Sanders are going to be special teams guys. So I think once they decided that Sanders was going to be the guy to get the second most carries in the game, they didn't want to like also add in Blue and then, take away that opportunity for someone like Flournoy to come out and play special teams. So I'm hoping that they just decide to maybe do a swap. Maybe this is the week that he comes in for Sanders and Sanders is down this week. Because I think Blue can run for 51 yards and fumble the ball. Like that's if that's what the bar is for Sanders, come on, man.
I wonder if it won't be Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams and Hunter Lipke again next week, just because of the Giants pass rush. And maybe you want the guys on the field that can help pass block the most, but I don't think Miles Sanders is a dynamic receiver. I don't think he's a dynamic pass blocker. I would be trying to get Jaden Blue in there, but that's me.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like, that's how I feel too. Like if you're gonna be in a situation where you're asking your back to pass block or to run through tough traffic, then you're not asking Miles Sanders to do that anyways. I'm asking Lipke or Williams to do that, both of which are very capable of catching the ball and pass blocking. So I think I would probably have Blue because what if I want to run a screen or what if I want to run an option route out of the backfield to make them think twice about blitzing or coming after us. So I mean, I think that, it's probably just a change in calculus and we'll see if maybe an extra 10 days actually of being away from that ankle injury maybe changes the angles a little bit on Blue being active.
I wanted to ask you about Kenny Clark, the Cowboys defensive tackle that they acquired in the Micah Parsons trade. Now, if you look at like the PFF grades, they weren't great, but I thought he played pretty well. And honestly, that's all that we've been lacking for at the defensive tackle. You've just been lacking that one other guy that can just play at a decent level. And honestly, that was kind of my thoughts. What were yours?
I thought I noticed a total difference. I mean, we weren't being blown off the football in the middle of our defense every single snap. And it just allowed for, some of these other guys to, and the other thing too, that I keep pointing out is that Kenny Clark played a lot of football too. Like, and for a guy that's playing a lot of it wasn't his best game, but he played a lot of decent snaps. That's way more than what we've gotten out of the defensive tackle position.
What was his first day of practicing? Was it Sunday or Monday? And then he played on Thursday?
Yeah. I mean, so like, that's pretty impressive, just to kind of come in and hit the ground running. And again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he was one of your top defensive tackle snap haver. So, obviously was a useful cog in this
40 snaps.
Yeah, so I mean that's a lot of snaps for a defensive tackle. So I think it was noticeable. And look, I mean, again, like I think if you just box score scout like the run game, oh my God, they gave up 158 yards. I mean, Saquon Barkley had 18 carries for 60 yards. Like he had 3.3 yards per carry, had a very low success rate. Like they had to manufacture yards with Jalen Hurts taking the ball out of the side on pass attempts. So it wasn't the numbers aren't great and it's not good, but this wasn't the typical Cowboys getting their butts kicked in the run game sort of situation. If anything, I felt like they held up pretty well in the middle of the defense.
I will say, I thought Jay Toia struggled quite a bit. And actually there were a couple times,
yeah, sure.
As soon as the Eagles saw Toia on the field, they audibled to some wide zone runs. And he's a liability on any wide zone stuff because he's just not athletic enough. He can't get there, right? Now, there were a couple times where they ran on short yardage and like traditional runs, and that's where he's really good as a space eater. But anything else than that, it's a problem. He played 20 snaps, and honestly, that's probably the most at the very, very high end that you want to have him out there for.
I mean, I think he has at best a role. I mean, frankly, when we were talking about this before, I mean, I was talking about him potentially being a practice squad guy, who would, come up and take some snaps. So for him to be in there and playing 20 snaps is way more than what I expected for him at this point. I think he has a clear role in goal line situations. If you have a short yardage defense, if you're doing like a 5-man surface and you want a specific kind of nose tackle guy, I think he's your guy. I don't know that he's your regular rotation like the rest of these guys as far as one techniques or nose tackle goes.
One more takeaway before we got to go. I thought Kenneth Murray really struggled, and this is where I'd like to see Maris Leofau start getting more snaps. Maris played 6 snaps on defense and was impactful on those 6 snaps, while Kenneth Murray played 61, I believe, something like that.
And I honestly thought that Clark outplayed Sanborn too. So, I mean, not that I need Sanborn to be off the field more than I need Murray to be off the field, but I just think that the point being, it's time to give these young guys some snaps, some opportunities here. And Sanborn, I think, I still want to continue to see, but with Murray, it's like he's missed all the training camp. They had lots of good snaps with linebackers without him. It's time to see these other guys and get Murray off the field.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Landon on Twitter @McCoolBCB. I'm @Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.